Hey everybody, this is Peter Palmiotti. Um, how you doing today? Um, Somebody stole my chair, Clea butt, and a couple of things. So let's see if I can. I'm already listening to some videos while I work, and I don't have to. I don't have to watch them. But let's see if I can do this. All right. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. Doing this live because that's what you came here for. All right, I'm just doodling. Nothing super fantastic. All right, cool, cool, cool. Um, so first off, um, wanted to mention something. Uh, I posted around that I got a new colorist for retro, and somebody commented on Twitter that you know well maybe they pledged to my Kickstarter specifically for the colorist. So to that I say, you know, there's reasons why I moved on from him coloring the book. Um, he was doing great work, but it was um, not not exactly a speedy delivery. And it's like I've been behind on projects, but it's a little more than that. But anywho, I decided to go with different colorist, and really, it's going to be a very different look than what you've seen. So, trying to figure out my character. So yeah, so they were saying, what if somebody specifically pledged because of the colorist, because of the wonderful coloring, and yeah, it was dynamite coloring for sure, and it's going to look very different, much like comics I grew up on. So I would say 70s, 80s, um, just before computer coloring. Um, and if that's the case, and I'll put this in a Kickstarter update specifically when I have some of the coloring done, but a new colorist. Because it's awful. Um, I do want to officially announce the colorist when we're on track quality wise. Because what's in my head won't might not wind up on the paper. So I'll work with the new guy, and that's a clue. It's a guy. Um, to make sure it's up to par and that it's on track. Like I said before, like that What did I say? That yeah, it kind of sucks like showing updates to your progress on your comic and a change like that. Uh, like changing the colorist and also direction of the coloring, and people have already seen like this wonderful coloring and it's going to be completely different. um, yeah, it kind of sucks, but so it goes. Hopefully I won't make that mistake again. I do want to show progress, but I do want to be 100% sure that you know what I'm showing is what's going to be the look of the final product. So yeah. So the colorist is finishing up a project. Once he's done with that, then I'll have him color a batch of pages, um, and make sure it's all groovy, and then I'll announce the colorist and show a bunch of pages. So that will be in November. So it definitely seems like December will be when I get things off to printer and move forward with all that. So hopefully, I'm not down to the wire, and I could, have it in people's hands before the end of the year. It's just, schedules. I'm part of a lot of projects, and schedule are everything's just slow, and it's really affecting my finances, and I'm gonna have to do something about that. Um, what's up, Ripley? After I do this video, I'm gonna have to kick the cats into the other room. Um, right, Ripley? I can't draw with you in my face. My face. She's right here. She's right here. You hear that? Go on. Go sit over there. Go play with the eraser. Anywho's, oh God. Onto the floor for you. All right. So, so I have a couple of things, and let me go look at my wonderful desk for a second. Where'd you go? Oh, there you go. Okay, you're safe. All right, so this year I wasn't published a lot, but I have copies of The Hawk of New York, $4.99, in which I assisted. I was a script consultant. This is Randy Bishop's book. I actually inked pages of Mitch Rogers. Mitch Rogers did the cover. I inked a bunch of pages on the inside, so you could pick this up. So I got 6 copies of that, and I also got 6 copies of this. This is Werewolves and Unicorns and Other Mythical Creatures, where me and 27 other creators Um, did short stories. You know the deal. You've seen the Kickstarter. So we got our copies for that. I got 6 left. Um, I did the Griffin story. Let's see if I can find it. Blah, blah, blah. Here we go. I'll show you the end. These are the first 2 pages. I'm going to sell the original art. So if you're interested in purchasing the art, I'm going to sell all 4 pages together. Shoot me a message on Messenger, and we'll talk. We'll talk. I'm not going to price them crazy, but I do want to sell them all as one thing rather than separately. So yeah, I plan to something I always go back to. I plan to do a lot more art, and this is why I'm doodling here. This is just for funsies, and it has to do with the topic of this episode once I get to it. But yeah, I wanna bang out some art and see if I can sell it online. So don't you come over here. You could go sit up there. That's fine. All right. So yeah, so I'm gonna start doing pieces and post them in various places. So if you're interested in having me draw you something, I possibly will take commissions. But I'm kind of thinking I kind of sort of want to do uh, specific art pieces based on a theme and whatnot. And I had this idea not too long ago, sort of doing, and I started a piece called Lovers. Essentially 9 by 6 pieces, um, and just artistically, creatively exploring how I make art and using different sort of subject matter. So that should be fun. And so if you see finished pieces like that and you want one, just message me directly. Um, so yeah, I wanna draw people and uh, something cool and fun. You know, I kind of like horror, and I really like sci-fi, and but I'm going with like kind of normal people. Um, if anything, the sort of subject matter will be sort of exercise or um, well, yeah, exercise, but like I drew a piece not too long ago where a woman was climbing the face of a mountain or a cliff, and I really like that. And so it would be like workout sort of theme because that's just inspirational, and uh, and give me some kind of unique pieces to draw just based on that. So we'll see how that goes. I don't think it would be any sort of huge. It won't be like viral kind of stuff. It would just be like um, me exploring a theme, but trying to do just pretty pieces, and we'll see how that turns out. You know, I just want to start pieces with a similar theme to a certain extent, even though the first one, Lovers, isn't exactly workout based. Well, making love is a workout, but they're just kind of coupled together a little bit. It's a head and shoulders kind of shot. I just like the look of it. Um, but the thing I wanted to talk about today, oh well, to go back to the retro, when I'm drawing, and the whole coloring thing is if if you pledged and you were ecstatic over the coloring and you feel ripped off because it will be very different looking coloring, then I will give you a full refund. Um, but wait until you see the book. I don't know. Um, I'll post somewhere the first batch of pages. Like I said, I'll probably do a Kickstarter update in which I'll share pages there. So it'll be seen specifically by the people who pledged to the Kickstarter. Um, and because projects have been going south, like moving forward, and I have to pull in money. I might have to consider doing retro on Indiegogo. We shall see. Um, so we'll see how that goes. I know I have to come up with a lump sum of money to pay for all the shipping and probably a good part of the printing, because all the Kickstarter money really is going to go to the penciler. Um, I haven't paid the penciler. Um, I kind of want to do everything at once. So I don't know. Business wise, I need a lot of help. Um, but this is my learning experience. I jumped in head first, doing a Kickstarter, and yes, I'm totally aware that I did a GoFundMe before that for uh, essentially it's a zero. It will be a zero issue. It'll be the origin of Richard's name, for the people that pledge to that, and eventually I'll have something set up to where people can get the zero issue. It's like I know I wanted to make the GoFundMe specifically exclusive, but I'm thinking that kind of doesn't work. Um, because I do want people who pledge that, or people who didn't pledge to that, have it available somewhere. So I'll have to think on that. Um, and with all my technical issue problems, there is a strong possibility that I might might be doing that traditional just to get it done. I'm going to explore digital again, but not until I get the first issue of Retro done. And depending on my finances, I might release Arena before the zero issue of Retro. So it's all chaotic and not as I planned. But you know, I thought I had like five different ways to sort of finance all these details, and I'm coming up empty on all regards. So the sort of subject of this episode, why I'm reconnecting with you a little sooner than expected, because I really do want to get back into making videos on a regular basis. Um, I'm held up at the moment because I got to pay my previous internet bill, which I always seem to be doing. But I think I got issues worked out, and yeah, I definitely will be paying a third going forward what I was paying previously, so that would be a great help. I'm not sure the quality I'll be getting as opposed to what I had previously, but it will be good enough for at least me to upload. So I don't know if I'll be streaming. Yeah, fingers crossed. I've always had issues streaming. um, and once I return, I do want to improve one thing, which is, this. I really like this, the camera on the tripod. But for me to film right side up, I'm gonna have to mount it to the wall. So I'm gonna get an arm at some point so that you could see things right side up while I draw. um, so yeah, like to get into the sort of main topic. Um, Retro is a character I created one summer. Hey, that's my neighbor slamming the door. Isn't that great? Um, I created my character Retro when I was in my late teens. You know, me and my family used to go upstate every summer, um, and me and my brothers used to go to camp. As they got older, since I'm the youngest, uh, they started becoming camp counselors. um, my brother Anthony, who doesn't do comics, but um, we are all sort of artistic in our own ways. I think pretty much we've all drawn. You know, I mean, mostly people know Jimmy as an artist, and he was an inker, and he's inked thousands of comics as opposed to me, who's inked hundreds of comics. Um, but Anthony drew, and he had bizarre drawings and whatnot. But he was into music, and he had sound studio in Brooklyn. Uh, when he was living in Brooklyn, but he moved and moved around. Um, and my cat's distracted me. But yeah, so he was very artistic, and he eventually got into computers and computer graphics and did design work and animation. Had his own company. Right now, I think he's mostly focused. Him and his wife Deborah do cruise line sort of gatherings and whatnot, and I believe they make pretty good money doing that. Um, but Victor, Victor Drew, as far as I know, as well. I was kind of young and not fully aware of that at the time, and only found out later. Um, but Vic has done a wide range of jobs, um, including he worked at the stock exchange, and that, in part and in a small way, inspired Retro's alter ego's day job, which is in finance. And I'll get specific in the comic, but um, that in Wall Street inspired Retro's day job, which is funny because it's what if anything, it's like um, money is not what I'm good at. uh, you know, I'm known more for being creative, and it's not I'm stupid in business. It's just not where my focus is, and my business is affected by that. So it is what it is. But trying to get better. Um, but yeah, so I created Retro when I was in my late teens, and I went to camp as a camper. Um, and I think there was one year where I remember helping out in the kitchen. So it was at least one year where I wasn't a camper. But by then, all my other brothers, years older than me, um, like Vic no longer came with us. Um, and Anthony did arts and crafts at some point, which was awesome. Um, I remember he he had pretty much like the whole camp um, getting ice cream sticks, for ice cream pops and whatnot, like collecting them. And at the end of the summer year, they built a huge, like, sort of, it was either twin towers or like, like a huge building out of the sticks, filled it with fireworks, and blew it up on the baseball home plate or something. Uh, yeah, that was probably his last year as working in arts and crafts. Us boys, we're, we're we're all in our own way pyromaniacs. Um, but yeah, so I created retro, um, and it was more the idea of a hero. I had a basic costume, kind of an amalgamation of different heroes. You could say it's like a cross between uh, the easiest example is like Wolverine and Captain America. What if their costumes had a baby? Ish. Um, and like looking at this, okay, so this isn't a full body, but um, essentially there's a triangle shape here, and then I'll just rough in really quick. Like this is his shoulders. So I kind of did this. And there's points. And I don't know muscles, but the actual shoulders were ended in points, and then it was sort of like this kind of thing. And that was always part of his design, you know. And that kind of went down to his belt. And the R for his belt was a later integration, as well as like the pants continued with that line. Um, and so let's just rough this in. It was like his chest, rib cage. So that's the simplest way. Um, so this is red, and then this is purple. And if you know like X-Men design, like the purple was supposed to be the very dark area, and the red is supposed to be the light area. So this is purple. So this is very dark, and his mask is purple. So his mask is really dark. Obviously, I really didn't draw it that way here, but um, one of the things, because I'll be the artist going forward with issue 2 and on, um, I'm going to define the work, the look as I go, because Rich Fuchsia did a couple of specific things that wasn't really part of my design, but he just took it a little further, which, hey, every artist has their interpretation. Um, One of the things he did was put a seam in between the colors. And I'm not sure if I will follow that or go with that, but it's a little more adding a little more realism. But he also made the shoulders, and I'm not sure if it's throughout the comic, but definitely you could tell on the cover that it's like this is almost really a slightly puffed out piece that it's almost like he's got a wife beater that connects to his shoulder segment, and that this is like a padded piece. Um, but yeah, I had the typical, the shoulder, you got the forearm. I'm off camera. Okay, got the shoulder, and then the forearm. Well, I don't know, the pieces, the arms. This is the forearm. I'm an idiot. Um, then a hand. Okay, so I had just a typical glove. I guess it was rounded for the original design. And what Rich did um, was make it slightly different. So he he kind of gave it a little cut So it's diagonally cut. Plus, it's got a little trim line. So you could also, you could kind of imagine that, yeah, there's a little padding at the end of it. Um, the boots were the same. Yeah, definitely. I had pouches in mind. I think I did them in the original design, and a lot of times heroes have pouches and they don't use them. It's just part of their design. It's like if you look at Rob Liefeld's Cable, it's like 90% of what he's wearing isn't, in the comic and isn't really integral to anything he does in the comic. I do want to do stuff like he'll pull out a snack bar from one of them. He'll pull out um, rope from another. I mean, there's small pouches, but that was some fun. One of the designs Rich did, and maybe I'll throw that in the comic. I'm not sure if I have room, but one of the designs he had him much like Daredevil. Like this is his legs, this is his belt. Um, Much like Daredevil has like the Billy Club. Yay, no viruses on my computer. Strapped to his leg. Well, Retro has rope strapped to his leg, which I kind of like the design of it, but it's not something we did in the first issue. But maybe I'll add it along the way. Um, so yeah, there were tweaks um, that I want this to be more of a. It's pretty much like a Y shape. Um, and it's also inspired by designs that from Avengers and from X-Men that I've seen that Neil Adams did. Just sketches of the characters before he formulated a distinctive look to when he drew both books. So definitely somewhat inspired by Neil Adams, who is awesome in many ways. And, Neil did some strange books where he had very 70s looking, uh, flashy costumes that nobody would be seen in today. But I might use some of that kind of flair for some of the villains. Um, but yeah, the so this is the red. This is the dark, and the dark is inspired specifically. Like I love John Byrne's run on the X-Men. Did more issues of the book, you know, like specifically the way he was doing Cyclops. The dark area became more pronounced and became more black within the dark area. Um, like when the character was small, it would be all black with no artistic detail to it. And then the bold shape of the X or whatever on specific characters became yellow in that case. But mine is the bowl shape is red. So his glove retro's red. Retro's gloves are red. His boots are red. Um, you know, and then the stripe center line essentially is red, except for at the top where it goes into a Y shape, and that's, you know, that would be red. So yeah, I definitely want this area dark. His mask will be dark, and then, you know, like most of his arms will be dark, and then the sides of his legs will be dark. And yeah, depending on what angle you see him at, is like sometimes maybe the red will be more pronounced. If you see him from a side angle where his leg is out, or maybe, you know, maybe it will be all purple. um, but yeah, when I initially designed him, it was very basic. Um, but I was, you know, I was going for something bold, not a lot of intricate detail. You know, costumes got more intricate and realistic over time. You know, obviously, uh, with the name retro, and because, like, you know, I'm inspired by the comics of the 60s through the 90s. Um, and also, like, you know, like I grew up on heavy metal, so there'll be adult nuances about the books, but not too heavy. Um, I was thinking of drawing something, but I'm just kind of doodle. So story wise, you know, like okay, so I created the look of this character and I came up with his name. I don't know. I pulled it out of the air, I guess. You know, my friend created a character and his character was named Mineral Man. And he had details to the character, like, you know, Mineral Man, he can change the minerals of anything and, you know, do stuff. But with Retro, I guess I always had the intention of making him stronger. You know, he's like 3 times as fast as the average human. He's 3 times as strong as the average human, you know, like something along those lines. And mind you, at this point in time, I have still yet to figure out the um, exactly how strong, exactly how fast. There is a scene in the first issue of the comic, kind of spoiler, to where he's with this other character and he's sort of doing thing like, you know, going from place to place really fast, but it's in this, you know, it's in an office essentially. So while I want him faster, you know, I by all means he won't be the Flash. And the way I think of it is essentially whatever you do, you exert energy. So you know, he may be super strong and he may be super fast to a certain degree, um, but he's not going to lift a car and run 10 miles really fast. Uh, you know, if he's lifting a car, then he could probably walk a little ways, but not, you know, he won't be doing both. You know, he's going to exert more energy than the average person, but you know, um, he could use one. I forget what hero specifically does that, but he can only use one power at a time. And that maybe that's Mon-El. I forget. Mon-El is sort of the same, but like the complete opposite visually of Superman to a certain extent. But um, I guess Superman's the same way. Like, he uses his heat vision, or he flies, or he uses super strength, but he's only doing one thing at a time. Um, so I had that in mind when I originally created the character. Um, but I didn't have an alter ego in mind until later. I didn't um, have like there's characters that he interacts with regularly as as Retro, as a hero. I didn't have in mind that he'll have a girlfriend and that they'll be living together. And you'll see that in the first issue. You'll see him interacting with a couple of folks. There's the main villain of the issue, but you also um, he's not the guy he interacts with in the office in an office. That's somebody else for a specific reason. But he knows this guy who works as a bouncer in a club, sort of his man on the street, uh, and that sort of comes from my love of Master of Kung Fu, specifically when um, what is it? What is it? Gene Day drew the comic, and I was a big fan of Gene Day. I think it's Gene Day. Um, but specifically when Paul Galassi uh, drew the book, I love that, to look at that, and the fact that he had an entourage of people, but they were like always with him, but there was only a couple of them. There was one that looked like, I think, Sean Connery, and one that looked like James Dean. I don't know, something like that. It was really awesome, and the art was phenomenal when Gacy did it. Um, and Doug Mensch was a freaking fantastic writer. I just loved that book, and I'm stoked personally for a Master of Kung Fu movie. I hope they get the elements right. I know, like, I love the old costume, but I know they're gonna update that anyway. Um, but yeah, I want to add more of a sort of small universe to him, and a bunch of characters. And a little bit of that comes from, my love of Spider-Man. With Spider-Man, it was all like, this is all family. His uncle died, he lives with his aunt, his girlfriend was in trouble a bunch of times, I guess. And, it's like he does everything for his family, um, as well as the world, but, um, and there'd be some of that with Retro, I guess. But I don't, there's things I'm going to do, but there's also specific things I'm not going to do, and all will, you know, say who the character is and what he's about, and just like, it will dictate specific stories. It's like, I don't want to. There's tropes I will do. There's tropes I will not do. um, but the main thing I want to get to is the fact that I sort of automatically created the first layer of Retro initially. Like, off the bat, this is what he looks like, and kind of in a little bit that dictated to me the kind of stories I would see him in. But as the years passed, you know, when I was in my early 20s and in college, um, I really wanted to become a novelist. Still yet to finish a novel. Great, write the great American novel one day. But that, that's why I love comics is like I could write a story and it doesn't have to be, 600, 800 pages or whatever. Um, so when I got into writing, it was always like I was creating this character for years and years in my head. Um, and he became more layered and layered. And initially, I was thinking of it, and this is around the time, I guess, when Sandman finished. Sandman is Neil Gaiman book over at DC Comics. Um, and unless I'm not accurate, Sandman finished at issue 75. So I thought, well, it's like I have specific things, sort of like PowerPoints, where I want to take this character and a specific journey, and I'm still going to do all that, but I'm thinking of Retro as an ongoing comic now. And my reasoning for that is like, okay, so I'm creating 7 different books, 7 different characters, and then they'll be teaming up for a group book. So it'd be 8 books total. Specifically, I'm thinking of this all as ongoing because my sort of personal mission and goal is to create this and for it to work ongoing. It's like I look at Marvel now, I look at DC now, and it's like I see the million ways they went wrong at some point. And, um, and you could point to the 90s where, all of a sudden Image popped up and everything was splashy and they started doing prestige format comics and they started renumbering. Renumbering was definitely a big factor in them going downhill. But then they completely just lost continuity. And then even now, later today, they're, something they always did is like to take one of their flagship characters, like Spider-Man, and envision him slightly different in a totally different story, totally different universe. One prime example is like the Ultimate Universe with Marvel. So it was, well, there was 2099 universe, and there was different things before that, but maybe not as company wide. Um, but the 2099 universe was pretty big, and I mean, I personally loved Spider-Man 2099. That was excellent book, excellent art, excellent story. And Peter David was the creator writer of that specifically, and I got to work with him later on Aquaman. Um, but yeah, I freaking love that book, and it's like I'm a huge fan of Spider-Man. Me and his alter ego, Peter Parker, had the same initials. We had the same first name, Peter. Um, and lots of people can relate to Peter Parker. Oh, Peter Parker luck. He has always had bad luck in his personal life, even though he was a hero and doing big and bold things in the world, and but he was also chased by the cops and lots of things. Um, but he was a nerd, and I wouldn't call myself a nerd, but it's like I was quiet when I was young, and um, eventually got into reading a lot of novels, and I kept to myself, and I doodled a lot, and um, me personally, I was happy to be in school, although I wasn't great in school. I passed. I got by, but I love the structure of it. And that is completely against being a freelance artist. It's like it's it's an inner conflict with me. It's like, oh, I love structure, and I love like I used to love working a day job. Um, but I guess it's like uh, Peter Parker, who was a complete science nerd, and you know he loved school, and he was in school for decades. If you read the comics. Um, but he went on to be a hero, and there's no structure to be a hero, and it's like his life was chaos because of it. Like me in my world, and um, trying to find reason for doing things half the time because it's like this is an insane lifestyle, but I love it, and you make it work. So much like being a hero, it's like it's kind of insane to decide to okay, so you have powers. Yeah, you can just go to Vegas and use your powers for your own personal gain and have a good, comfortable life. But no, you get these powers and you decide, hey, I'm gonna help people. Essentially, I'll save them from burning buildings or sinking boats or whatever have you, planes going down. Um, I'll fight everyday criminals, bad people, or if other people with powers show up, I'll fight them too. And even if my loved ones are in peril because of it, or my life is more complicated because of it. Uh, but I'm going off on tangents, I guess. So yeah, retro has definitely developed over the year, and I've written this book 1,000 times in my head, and it's just grown more layered and more complicated. As I played with the possibilities in my head, and there's not any hard and fast rules. It's like I say this a lot. It's like a comic isn't done until it's published. It's like there's always opportunity to tweak the story, to tweak the art, to tweak the bonus matter, everything about it. But once it's published, then that's final, uh, regardless of what George Lucas says. But um, yeah, so I created more of the world in and around retro, but also like the bigger picture. And something new that's developed is that he'll be going on this sort of mission to uh, find out, why am I a metahuman? Why are there other metahumans, and what's the origin of that, and what does it mean? And that's that's not a specific idea. That's something new I sort of developed because I was thinking, well, I'm going to have multiple characters in multiple books. And I wanted Retro to be the one that's on the mission to find out what all this is or means or what have you. And that, that in a little ways comes from the character Nexus. Nexus in his book, you know, he was a killer of killers, and but he also had this thing where he's like on these planets or planet, um, sort of digging through the history of it and discovering things, and I just love that about it. And I thought it would be a great element to add to retro and to maybe um, maybe some of the other characters. I don't know. We'll see. See how it all pans out. It's like I'm leaving a lot open ended. I'm not detail driven. Um, I'm not doing a outline for all the books and all the characters. I'm sort of building it as I go. Much in the way like Stephen King works, where he has very specific ideas about scenes and characters and situations, but he leaves the some of it, the rest of it, open ended for him to explore as he goes, and that's what I'm doing. Um, so it's a little tighter than comics were created back, in the 50s and 60s and probably even later. Um, but it's not so tight as some other people work. And either that's going to work in my favor or maybe it'll blow up in my face. Maybe I'll paint myself into a corner. Um, and, career where I felt that like I painted myself into a corner. What the hell am I doing now? Um, but that's the juice that gets me up in the morning and gets me working. Um, sort of that my own personal exploration into what does comics mean to me? What you know it's just it's a perpetual excitement level, uh, and discovery and so everything's not written in stone for retro, or the other characters, um, and it's you know if I it's like making food. I'm not a foodie, but it's sort of a good analogy. um, it's like, what if I made a sandwich with bologna and cucumbers and I don't know, squash. But I'm just trying to think of different ingredients never been used together. Um, it's like, give it a shot. Those that make beer are always trying to discover new tastes, and it's like I'm exploring making comics and adding. It's like you're buying my comic because I add different ingredients. Um, and I'll be exploring everything. I'll be exploring writing, I'll be exploring drawing, I'll be exploring creating a universe, I'll be exploring every part of it. And, you know, it's all, it all stems from the millions of comics that I've read. Okay, thousand. uh, that I read growing up. You know, it's like I read, you know, probably every single issue of Fantastic Four by Jack Kirby and Stan Lee. Um, and above and beyond that, I read Fantastic Four for years. I read Avengers for years. I read X-Men for years. Spider-Man, Captain America, Thor, not so much. I mean, I love the character, but I love them more in the Avengers than I did in his own book. I wasn't too much on that Greek stuff, which is why I was a fan of Wonder Woman to a certain degree, as long as it was just her going on adventures, not necessarily exploring her. Who is that shadow? It's my kitty cat. Go on the floor. Okay. Okay. um, yeah, as long as it was a one-to-one story with her going, you know, not going into the history of her family and yada yada yada. Um, I'm more into history now than I was growing up or even in school. No, 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 no. Stay over there. Okay. um, so yeah, I mean, you know, it's like I know my comic won't be for everybody, but I'm not trying to sell everybody on my comic. Um, I just need enough fans to keep the book alive and earn a good living. And you know, uh, like I said before, I'll be creating 7 different characters, and each will be unique to themselves. And so, you know, if you don't like my Spider-Man, you might like my Captain America, or maybe my um, Fantastic Four title, or you know, I mean, obviously my team book is like more inspired by Avengers than anything else. I've read tons of Avenger comics, um, and there's so many different artists on Avengers and so many different writers. I do remember loving Jim Shooter Avengers. I can't even name Mar, Wolfman, maybe. I don't know. I would have to go back and explore uh, what I read and who's the creators on it. But definitely, like you know, artistically, George Perez did a ton of Avengers work. I'm definitely inspired by all that. Neil Adams did a batch. Even uh, Barry Smith. Um, who else worked on Avengers? I don't even know. I want to. Well, John Buscema. Who's writing John Buscema's Avengers? I don't have a clue. Roy Thomas, maybe. Um, Steve Eaglehart, or was that Spider-Man? Um, you know, I have Marvel Masters. I have the first book, which has the first, I don't know, maybe 8 issues of Avengers. And those are fun. It was like Hulk was a member, but then he left. He was the wild card. Um, But yeah, it's like I love what I've developed of retro and sort of the bigger picture and where he'll be going. Um, and it's like I was definitely a fan of Captain America, Daredevil, um, Spider-Man. Like the issues where even X-Men sometimes like the issues where it was just a bunch of issues in a row where it was villain after villain issue. And I want to do that for a little bit, or in theory, do that. It's like I said, I'm not nailing anything down uh, specifically until I get there and just do it. Um, but, there's certain ways to build a comic that I'm very happy with how Retro is the first issue of Retro has come out, and I think once people see my comic, that they'll be a fan of it, and hopefully I can build enough a good size um, audience to where I could be successful with it, and um, I mean I'm kind of you know I don't know if jealous, but like I look at sort of Terry Moore with Stranger to Paradise. I look at um, what did I Clean the Ran with Distant Soil. I look at uh, Terry Wood with what was their book? I'm blanking on the name. It was a serious comic book. Serious the Star Dog. um, I'm trying to think of books I grew up on that I loved. Definitely Richard and Wendy Penny with ElfQuest. Love that book. Freaking phenomenal. And I wasn't so much an elf guy, but it just spoke to me. I mean, I love the artwork. Definitely, you know, that's always the biggest sell for me back then. It's gonna have great art. Nexus, who I mentioned, Steve Rude, Mike Barron, freaking just great idea of a character and situation and his universe. And he had his love of his life, much like, you know, Mary Jane for Peter Parker. Um, Here's a chicken and egg story. What came first? Um, Mary Jane in Spider-Man comic, or the phrase Mary Jane in real life? I think that the expression Mary Jane came first, I guess. I, that's always a thought in the back of my head. What came first? Um, but yeah, so I have a lot to explore with who Retro is as just a regular person, who he is as a hero, and he's essentially at the sort of beginning of his career. It's not day one, and there's plenty of backstory. Um, but how I get around to it, I hope will be interesting. Um, and yeah, hopefully, hopefully I'll be honing my skills as a writer, as an artist, as a storyteller, and doing the book justice. It's not only important to just come up with a basic story that keeps people interested, but to tell it well. Um, and I have a hard act to follow as far as the art goes, because Rich Fisher did a really, really, really good job of fleshing out my plot and telling an interesting story visually. Um, and I'm sort of leaning in a direction of there's something very specific I want to do when I start penciling issue two, which is not this year, so don't worry. When I finish the first issue. But so artistically, issue two might not be my style of the book, but it will allow me to explore. It will still allow me the opportunity to explore what is the definitive look of the character. Do I do what Rich did? Do I lean more in a different direction? Yada yada yada. To me, it takes a couple of issues to integrate a team, and the more a team is together, and in this case, it would be me as the team. Uh, but that's still a thing too. It's like the first issue of like Mike Mignola's Hellboy doesn't look like the 14th issue of Hellboy. And there's pluses and minuses to that, but uh, I love Mike and I love Mike's work. Uh, I got the opportunity to hang out with him back in the day, and I think that was just before the first issue of Hellboy came out. Talk about indie creator. Um, excuse me. You know, he fleshed it all out at the very beginning, or at least it seemed that way. Uh, and I hope that's the case for like somebody who picks up my first issue of my book. You know, maybe I know it's not, but maybe it'll look like that to a reader. Like, oh, he knew everything about this character, and it was all there written in between the lines. Um, I'm really excited to bring retro to the people and what I have in development at this point in time with other artists. Um, I'm glad I didn't do it earlier in my career, and there was a number of failed attempts. You know, anybody who followed my friend Dan Cooney with Valentine, uh, I made an attempt at that point, which didn't go anywhere, to bring Bright Eyes to people, and I will be getting back to Bright Eyes. I do want to do that story. That story is more fleshed out than any of my other creations. So, I've said it about retro, which is like, this is my baby. This is, and it's definitely my oldest creation. But Bright Eyes is a whole different side of my brain, um, and a whole different level of story and character and journey and whatnot. Um, but yeah, it's like, it's like, I, I work for Marvel, I work for DC. I did some books that were published by Image. Mostly I've done a lot of hundreds of independent titles, most of which I can't. Um, it's like Marvel and DC were a goal, specifically Marvel. Um, I read thousands more Marvel comics than DC comics. Definitely exclusively Marvel for years and years and years. Um, but yeah, so like, I just want to. I want to do it um, as I think comics should be done, but I'm also like thinking about the big picture. It's like I don't want, it's like I want the quality of the books, you know, that I'll begin with issue one of Retro to be the quality of books 10, 20 years down the line, you know. And I'm thinking of this like as a fan looking at Marvel and DC, and they still do highly awesome quality books, but you have to pick and choose. And it's like I'm not reading any of them right now, but I could tell you, um, they did. They have the resources and they have the people. There's no doubt they're doing quality books, but overall they lost direction. They got caught up in doing books that are too expensive. They got caught up in doing, renumbering books. They get, you know, redefining their popular characters. I think building out the characters too much. Like, you know, Batman, for me, he's not my favorite character. Although there's a ton about him I love, and I've read a ton of Batman books. But um, there's Batman, there's Robin, there's Batwoman, Batgirl, there's Batwing. I don't know. Like there's too many excess Bat characters. And Batman works best as just Batman. It's like don't toss the whole Bat family. It doesn't. There's definitely great stories within that, but I could read 100 issues of Batman where it's just Batman. Batman and Alfred, Batman. Maybe some other characters pop up every 15th issue or something, but just give me solo Batman stories. Anyway, um, is that where you're gonna get with retro? I don't know. Like I said, um, I'm gonna be exploring the character. I'm gonna be exploring the universe, his villains, these other characters along the way. Um, I got, it's like I don't have a specific story to tell. but um, I have the need to tell 100 stories. That makes any sense. Um, but I just freaking love comics, and like a lot of them I grew up on, and it's like I don't have the the finances in the first place, or the time, or you know right now to read much of anything. Um, every attempt, I'll get back into it. The specific comics I want to read. My good friend, uh, oh, what's the book? Forget it. I'm not gonna name anything. There's great books, comic books, published, web comics. I'm not gonna drop any names right now, but that I want to read, and I will get to. It's just it's like I mentioned before. It's like right now I got to focus on my own work. I got to focus on getting books done. Um, I'm on like too many projects, and other people's projects are going slow, and therefore mine are going slow. So I got to find out a better way. Like I mentioned, I'm not the greatest businessman, so I gotta just make more art and make more money. Is the thought I've had for the past 8 years, and I've yet to do it. Just sit down and make art. Make art today, make art tomorrow, and sell it. It's like I draw as often as possible, just about every day, but I don't do finished pieces. So if I do 100 crappy pieces, at least I'll have a hundred crappy pieces to sell. And there's a fan out there, someone for everything. Um, so I just got to do it. So this is what I was doing. It's just it's like I know there's a real good artist in there somewhere. Anyway, this is my retro doodle from before. Thank you all for listening to me. Almost an hour and a half. Hey, that's a hefty video. Once again, if you want to purchase my work in Werewolves and Unicorns, the 100th anthology book, I was part of the team for this issue. Also, a story consultant. So if uh, you want to get that, this one is for $4.99, essentially $5. This one's $21.99, essentially $22 plus shipping. If you want to, if you buy them both, I'll do a quick sketch for free. So that's that. Thank you for watching. This is also me on Patreon, patreon.com/PeterYI. I don't push that enough. And there's a tip jar link in the description. Um, Thank you for watching. If you got any comments or anything you do specifically while creating comics, let me know. Or good ways to make money. Besides selling my ass on the corner. Um, but we're all writer and artistic cores. It's like a joke that I've heard many a times. We're all art whores, selling our wares to the highest bidder. Um, I like that. I connect with that much much. I'm sure Peter Parker could connect it with that in some way or shape or form as well. Um, yeah, love you all. Subscribe to the channel if this is your first time listening, watching me. Um, eventually the quality of, of me working and talking in a video, of which, essentially I'll just bolt a arm into my wall or something of that sort. Because, it's like I said, I love this tripod, but it doesn't point the camera the right way. I wish I could flip it, but it doesn't work that way. Anyway, thank you. I'll see you again, hopefully shortly. Take care, everybody. Have a great, productive day.